I'm Jan and you're watching TVP World Talks, where every word matters. Russia shot down our airliner and has to apologize. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev did not exactly beat about the bush when it comes to the recent tragedy that killed 38 and left many more injured as a passenger plane crashed in Kazakhstan after what most agree was an accidental blast from a Russian air defense missile over Grozny. Aliyev also demanded compensation and rejected Putin's proposal to have the accident examined by a Moscow-led group of aviation experts. But beyond the simple matter of liability and justice, broader questions remain. Can the tragedy push Azerbaijan away from Moscow, undermining the regional partnership of convenience? Joining us now to discuss this is Grigol Julukhidze, Associate Professor at the Caucasus University. Hello and welcome to TVP World. Let's try again. I didn't actually hear you. Can you perhaps repeat?
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Okay, we seem to have some minor issue, but we solved it already. So the first question, do you think the response from Ilham Aliyev was what the people of Azerbaijan expected?
Yes, from the political point of view, it was a very effective message. First of all, for the Azerbaijani people who saw that their president is capable to make clear statements in regard to this tragedy, which classically cannot be fit into the category of tragedy because it happened because of the actions of Russia. Another issue is, of course, a strong international signal to Moscow. This was the declaration of the readiness of official Baku that they have the information, they are receiving more and more specific details about this issue. And at the same time, one thing should be underlined, that Mr. Aliyev has a strong support of his Turkish counterpart, Mr. Erdogan. It means that his voice is not the voice of only Azerbaijani people, but also partially of the Turkish.
Would you agree that Ilham Aliyev was rather bitter, even positively furious at the initial Russian response? I mean, the initial response from Russia was that a flock of birds contributed to this tragedy. And, you know, unless you know any kind of birds that have beaks tipped with titanium and some other metal capable of piercing the fuselage of an aircraft, this instantly will be something that people look at and say, no, this is just not true. This is dissembling on the part of Russia. So could this contribute to his reaction? Could he have basically said, okay, enough is enough. We want Russia to take responsibility for this?
Well, generally, tragedies, unfortunately, happen everywhere. But the difference between the interpretation of the tragedy is always different. In democratic countries, the states react more or less adequately to the crimes, to the human mistakes. But in case of Russia, we have been seeing, I don't know, from the beginning of the 90s, how the regime has been trying to hide all the traces related to similar events and issues.
Sweeping them under the carpet, right?
Sure, exactly. And Ilham Aliyev is not a silly politician. He knows quite well the Russian modus operandi. He spent a lot of years in communication with Russian colleagues and understands quite well what are the methods of the Kremlin to hide the crimes, or, once again, I repeat, human mistakes. And from this point of view, we have not seen anything innovative from Russians. And it served as an additional tool for irritation of Azerbaijani people and consequently its leadership.
Perhaps the only innovation was the attempt to jam the signal, hoping, this is what many people believe, the Russians were hoping the aircraft would crash into the Caspian Sea and that all the evidence would be lost. So luckily this did not happen, and we also have survivors. So now, do you think it's the right decision to have the aircraft examined by international experts? There are indications this might be experts from Brazil, where the aircraft was manufactured, instead of having a group of specialists from the CIS, mostly Russians, presumably, taking a look at this and coming to their own conclusions?
Well, that's a very specific issue. Unfortunately, my knowledge about the aviation issues is quite limited. But one thing is clear, that Russia will be doing everything to cover and to hide its responsibility in this act. And another issue that you have already mentioned is the attempt to and actually decision to send this plane to Kazakhstan with the hope that it would be crashed in the Caspian Sea. And that's why, of course, the credibility of Russian experts is minimal for Azerbaijani side. And what will be the further actions right now, nobody knows, because I'm very actively watching the Azerbaijani media, and there's a complete mess. Yes, the leadership tries to portray itself as the self-confident side in this situation, but the events and the current state of affairs show that nobody knows what's going to happen in the upcoming several days, and the upcoming days will be decisive to fully understand the picture.
And going beyond the disaster itself could have an impact on bilateral relations.
I don't think so, that it will dramatically hit Russo-Azerbaijani relations, because for right now, Azerbaijan is very interested in keeping normal relations with Russia, so as Moscow, especially amid the ongoing war in Ukraine and major losses in the Middle East. And that's why I don't think that it will undermine the Russo-Azerbaijan relations, but of course it will have its negative impact. And also many things depend on the further development of the situation and readiness of Russian side to somehow declare its guilt or make some concessions to Azerbaijanis.
To provide compensation, because this is what President Aliyev also said, give us compensation for the victims. Why would Azerbaijan not be interested in degrading its relations with Russia? I mean, it has a powerful protector in the form of Turkey, and Turkey is actually a country that doesn't really mess around, right? If it is confronted with Russia, it will not back down. It will not say, yes, we're going to issue stern words of condemnation. They actually do act if necessary. So do you think Azerbaijan could feel confident in Turkish support if it comes to a situation whereby it simply cannot abide the Russo-Azerbaijani relations to remain at the level that they are today, even if Russia issues some sort of threats or blackmail?
Well, the level of cooperation might be reduced in the coming months, but I do not expect dramatic change in the relations. First of all, because of the tactics of Mr. Aliyev, who does not act drastically. In the only case Azerbaijani side acted drastically, it was the war with Armenia. But as for Azerbaijani-Russian relations, because of the modus operandi of official Baku, they always refrain from taking dramatic decisions. Yes, there might be some harsh criticism in the Azerbaijani media, which will be shared by their Turkish counterparts, but still, the status quo in the Azerbaijani-Russian relations will not change in the upcoming months. There will be some, let's say, worsening scenarios, but not dramatic and not fundamental.
What about the West? Do you think the West could have a counteroffer, like, improve relations with us? We could cooperate in the energy sector instead of boosting relations with Russia. Do you think it could work?
It could work, but I don't see the readiness from Azerbaijani side in this regard. They feel quite comfortable. They restored territorial integrity, got the big brother who is ready to protect them. These relations are deepening on the daily basis. Azerbaijan is getting more and more attention and power in the region, especially in the Asian part, and is normalizing its traditionally, let's say, damaged relations with Iran, is gaining more and more control over Georgian government, which in return of some services makes some concessions to Azerbaijani side. And in this scenario, of course, Europe might be more interested to get as much as possible from Baku. And the Azerbaijanis are quite open to these offers without any urgency. They expect the proposals from the European Union, and about that it was mentioned even in the national security strategy of this country.
Grigol Julukhidze was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insight.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm Jonasz Rewiński. You're watching TVP World. Please stay with us for more latest news and updates.